I knew that I did not want to do a, mail order curriculum. I never felt the need to replicate school at home. We made like goals for the year. His goals, things that he wanted to learn about, and things that I hoped that he would learn about, and things that I wanted to learn about. That's actually kind of fallen by the wayside. It's like we didn't have a whole lot of structure in the first place, and what structure there was just kind of. But I know that there are plenty of homeschoolers that are very, very structured. But we're definitely more in the unschooling approach. But we're not total unschoolers, because they do have a little bit of academics that they do every day. Mm-hmm. So a total unschooler wouldn't even bother with that. Mm-hmm. And that seems to work fine for them. But I have that little bit of anxiety that's like, well, I really feel like with math, you need to practice it. Just get those multiplication tables down, and and with spelling, mm-hmm. like for some people it's natural and some people it isn't. And I definitely do go through the, we forgot decimals, oh my God, or, and I kind of had to let go of the cursive handwriting. But it's not that as you homeschool you don't still have anxiety, but when I really sat down and thought about it, I realized I'd have anxiety if they were in school as well. It would probably be about different things, but maybe not. So I think that's just part of the parenting experience in general, and not linked necessarily to homeschool particularly. So. And then having done it for a while, you start to make that leap of faith a little more easily. Mm-hmm. I know of a child in the homeschool group who did not read at all until 11, 12. I mean, and even his mom was an unschooler and fairly like, oh, it'll come. Was getting a little, maybe not. Maybe I should have been drilling him. And then bam, he was right away reading Lord of the Rings. If you're a reading family and you just constantly expose your kid to it, I really do think they pick it up. And when you do find things that are you're concerned about, then you monitor it and you're around them, so are they making progress or are they not? Maybe we should try something different. But the interesting thing though is we do so little formal, okay, now we're studying science, now we're studying math, and yet when he does the bubble test, California Achievement Test, he does great in almost every category. You can get this information without necessarily teaching to the test. I went to a talk by a woman who'd been homeschooling a long time, and her kids were in their 20s and in college, and she said that when they started out, they were extremely structured, school at home, mm-hmm. and they went on a road trip, and she was going to bring all the the school in a box on there, and her mother somehow convinced her not to. The kids learned so much, and she essentially came to, after a couple of years, what we kind of started out with, which was, a little tiny bit of kind of academics every day, and the rest is just life. And mm-hmm. so I was really relieved to hear that. But it's the sort of thing, I don't think you can convince somebody about it, because it's this leap of faith, and it's a trust thing, and it feels kind of scary sometimes, but then, he does the test, and it's like, oh, yeah, it does work. The California Achievement Test is mm-hmm. very standard test that school kids mm-hmm. take, and they don't have to test until they're 8,
right?
And then or be evaluated until they're 8. I felt that probably an in-person evaluation would be better for him, mostly based on the fact that when he was in first grade, I was an active volunteer where he went, and I remember doing some spelling test, and I had a group of kids, and Nick happened to be in my group, and I would say words to spell, and kids were allowed, if they felt they didn't know it, they could just say skip. And I was going through the test, and Nick was just saying skip, skip, on words that I knew he knew how to spell, because he'd done it with me at home. And I thought, okay, I think maybe in like a testing environment, and there were the other times with tests where I thought, I don't know if he tests well necessarily, so let's just do the in-person. And the same thing happened, where, he did flying colors on all the reading and all that, but when it came to the math, there were math problems, sort of basic subtraction, double-digit subtraction stuff that I knew, because I'd just seen him do it, that he knew how to do, that he was choking on. So I was like, oh, well, what the heck am I paying, this much money for the in-person when I might as well. So I asked the next year, do you want to try the bubble test? And just like, sure, and we loved it. Oh my God, it was like, I got to be the proctor, I got to say, pencils down. It is interesting, and this adds to my anxiety sometimes, that when you're homeschooling, because you're just living your life, in a way it's harder to remember sometimes what you've done and the progress that has been made, whereas Nick has clearer memories actually of his time in school. I think there's something about the structure of it that makes it easier to remember. Mm-hmm. So I started writing down the books that the kids were reading and or having read to them and the various things we did, also to show that we are complying with the 11 required subject areas, which if you are living your life and a person who's curious about the world, you will automatically pretty much cover all of those.
Anyway,
yeah. So, and you know, you could look and say, oh, well, we didn't do that much, I don't know, science or whatever, and then fix that. But so this is sort of our curriculum in reverse. It's what we've been doing, and that's helpful for all of us to look at it and say, oh yeah, okay, we did. Oh, and then you know, like I was saying about the progression of his reading, I'm not sure I would have remembered that so well, except that I had it here, and I remember thinking, oh wow. When you homeschool, generally, you really do know your kids. You know their ins and outs. You know they're weak on spelling or whatever it is, and you'll work with them a little more on that, and you'll know that they're already starting to read, and so you know now's the time to get some of those books in the library. It's very organic. I as I say, I'm kind of glad to be doing this because it sort of forces me to break it down a little more. But the way that we live our life in homeschool is there's not a real formal, strict plan about it, but yet things happen because I know my kids and I know what their interests are and what their weaknesses are and how to tap those resources that there are so many of in the Seattle area to feed their hunger for learning.